Hello Techie guys, welcome to our first topic in the series, which is recursion. What is recursion and how we can use that in our problem solving? I'm going to cover what actually the recursion means and how we need to understand the recursion, how we can think any problem recursively. That's what we are going to cover in this video. So let's start the video. As you already know from our college days, from our academics, a function that calling itself is a recursive function. The concept is like a function calling itself is a recursion. But actually the function, how the function executes, understand the concept of this recursion, you should have a very clear understanding how the function works and how the execution flow in a program works. Without that understanding, it is very difficult to understand this concept of recursion. So I would like to explain you what actually the function workflow. If you want, you can skip this topic, but I strongly recommend you to continue watching this topic because it's very important. Even though you feel like you know this topic, I strongly recommend you to continue to watch this topic because in understanding the recursion, this topic is very important. What is the function and how it executes, the execution order, and when you call a function, what actually happens behind. This is very important in understanding the recursion. So let's see what is the function. The function means like instead of duplicating the code, you put some of the code aside and call it as a function. So the intent behind is whenever you call the function, the execution flow has to stop at that particular point. You should go to the function what you have called and complete that function first, come back here to continue further. So that is the main intent behind the function calling. You already know this, but thus laid the foundation for this recursion. Let's understand the function first. I'm going to the IntelliJ. I have created a course for this complete journey and any code I'm going to share in this GitHub repo. And this is the visualizer that we are going to visualize the algorithms in my coming videos. I will also explain how I made this visualizer. If you like this video, let's focus on this data structures with Java. This is the course that I'm going to share all the topics, all the code that I have been writing in the series of videos. Let's see, I have a call a function. Like take a main function here. I am here and I am appending an n value here. The n value I have taken as 0. N value is 0. It's like, so I am just printing, I am here and I am printing this repeatedly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So I am printing here repeatedly. And in between, I am calling the method SayHello. What it will do? The SayHello just prints hello, right? I'm calling this method thrice, right? When I continue, when I execute this program, you can see the execution started here. Don't feel bored. It's actually very important to understand what happens when you call a function. So the execution started here. It is going down line by line. So this is actually the execution workflow. Now it is printing the n value. I'm 0, and this I'm 0. You call a function SayHello at line number 53, and what happens now? The control stops executing this function and straight away shifts its focus to SayHello. So it went to SayHello, and if I see the stack here, the main method is still waiting on the line number 53. It's waiting for SayHello to complete because you call that method from the main function, and it went there to the SayHello. Now it is trying to execute the same way from line by line. It has only one line, so it was executed and this function completed. So where it returns now? It returns to the same, the very next line where it has called that function. So it is like when it encounters a function, it stops that function call at that particular point and go to that function, first complete that and then come back to the same line, like the very next line. After this line complete, it went to this line. To complete this line, it has to call that function, and after completion of that function call, it returned back to the very next line. I know it is very basic, but this is very important. And execution continues. Still we have here, I have hello, and execution is still continuing. Again I call the same method again, SayHello. Execution stops at 57th line, because to complete the SayHello function call, it goes to the function call, complete it first and come back to the next line. So what you understand from here, whenever you call a function, the execution stops at that particular point and it goes to the called function. There it first executes that function with all the data, whatever the state, it first executes the function and then come back to the place where you called that function. Even though it sounds very familiar, very similar or very basic, most of the people often confuse at this point when it comes to recursion. You know what? A recursion is also a function call. You are calling the same function from itself. This is often misinterpreted or misunderstood topic, because when you call a function, the execution stops at that particular point of that current function and it goes to the function where other function has been called. But if the two functions match, if the called function and the caller function both are same, that is where the confusion starts. But here, to understand this, the caller function waits until the called function completes its execution. That is the main point you need to understand. So if the called function and caller function are same, yes, it is same for us, not for the system. For the system, even the called function is same. It treats that as a completely new function with its parameters and it tries to execute it and come back to its called function. So how many times this cycle repeats is like how many times we are calling that function. This is called the call stack of the recursion. This keep on builds up. Like I call the function SayHello, right? I call the function SayHello. What happens if I call the function SayHello again here? I'm calling the SayHello function again here. Do you know what happens? Let's debug it and see what actually happens. So execution started. Very good. Yes, it went to the SayHello, and in the console I'm here n is equal to 3 4 times, and here comes that part. It is calling SayHello, right? It's again calling SayHello. It's not coming out. It's again calling SayHello, and it is keep on printing hello. But wait, let's see. The main method is waiting for this hello to complete. The main method is still here. It is waiting here to complete SayHello function. This SayHello is still on waiting on the line number 46, and this SayHello is waiting on the same line. This SayHello is waiting on the same line. You might see the function is same, but for the system the function is not same. Both are different. For you it is same. For the system it is different, but it is calling and it is waiting that function call to complete. And this function call has to be completed to start this execution, and this has to be completed to start this execution, and this has to be completed to complete this execution. So all these are dependent as a stack. This is called a call stack, the function stack. So like you call this method, again you call this method, and when it ends, there is no end, and this leads to a stack overflow exception, because we call this as a call stack, and this is a last in first out algorithm. Whenever you call a function, it tends to execute that function, complete it, and then remove that function from the call stack and tends to execute the next one. There is no end for it, and still executing. There is exception like stack overflow. So there is no end for it because you did not say when to stop. So for the system, it is a different method. For you, it might be the same method. So it is your responsibility to tell system when not to call itself to avoid this type of stack overflow exception, and thus terms as the base case. So that is the base case where you are telling to the system to stop calling a function. It is the same function for you, but for the system, it is different function. So hope you understand what is the function and how the function call works and why the base case is very important in recursion. Hope you understand this. Meet you in our next video to understand what recursion in depth. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye bye.